Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Craig Marcombe. We warmly welcome the family of Private Robert John Marcombe, whose story will be told shortly by Commander Craig Marcombe, who is Private Robert John Marcombe's great-nephew. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, would you please stand and join in singing the national anthem? Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Robert John Marcombe. Robert Marcombe, known as Bob, was born in 1896 to William and Fanny Marcombe of South Wales. He was born in the mining town of Treharris, north of the capital, Cardiff, and was educated at Pennygraig Public School. Bob's father almost certainly worked as a miner in the Welsh coal mines and was a very vocal activist for social matters in the valley. He went on to serve as the secretary of the Treharris Labor Representation Committee and president of the Mid-Rontha Trades and Labour Council. When Bob was around 14 years old, his oldest brother William left for Australia. William moved to Queensland, spending time in places like Rockhampton and Mackay before settling in Mount Morgan. Meanwhile, Bob's father's health was declining, and in 1911, the Marcombe family made the decision to join their eldest son in Queensland in the hope that it would help William Sr. Bob, his parents, and the remainder of his siblings arrived in 1913. The large family settled together in Mount Morgan, where Bob worked as a labourer. Bob Marcombe enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in early March of 1915, about 7 months after the outbreak of war. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with the 26th Battalion on board the troop ship Ascanius in May of 1915. By this time, newspaper reports in Australia would leave him in little doubt as to what he would be facing when he arrived. By the time Private Bob Marcombe had arrived in Egypt to continue his training, 2 more of his brothers, his eldest brother William and his next youngest brother Walter, my grandfather, had also enlisted in the AIF and were undergoing training in Australia. The 26th Battalion landed on Gallipoli on the 12th of September 1915, a couple of weeks after the last major operations of the August offensive had died down. 2 days later, Marcombe missed a parade, which earned him a day's punishment, but otherwise his conduct on the peninsula was unremarkable. Marcombe's battalion had arrived as the summer was coming to an end, but the Anzac forces were still suffering with dysentery and other sickness that had been rife during the hotter months. By late November, with the nights becoming much colder and even snow threatening on occasion, Marcombe's health was seriously suffering. He was evacuated from Gallipoli on the 23rd of November 1915, suffering from jaundice and pneumonia. Marcombe was taken to the base at Mudros, where his condition worsened and he was sent to hospital on Malta. Before he could get there, however, he died of pneumonia on board the hospital ship Gloucester Castle on the 29th of November 1915. Close enough to Malta to avoid being buried at sea, Bob Marcombe was laid to rest at the Pieta Military Cemetery near Valletta in Malta. He was 20 years old. Bob Marcombe probably never received the news that his father had died less than 2 weeks before he fell ill. Rocked by the loss of her husband and her son, Fanny Marcombe withdrew her permission for Walter to serve as a soldier under the age of 21, and he returned home. This may have saved his life. His other brother, Private William Marcombe, was killed in action on the Western Front on the 23rd of June, 1918. The names of Bob and Will Marcombe are listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of Bob Marcombe is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert John Marcombe, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his final moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.